Um, I think from a functional perspective, I really like a product like
Ksenya Malina is a New York City interior designer with a love for blending vintage charm and contemporary edge. She creates spaces that feel lived in, layered, and unmistakably fresh. Her clients are young professionals ready to settle into a new chapter and a new space. Senya's work isn't just about how a room looks, it's about how it makes you feel when you walk in. Every piece tells a story, and every detail is chosen with purpose. If you're looking for a home that reflects who you are and where you're going, Senya's design will help you feel right at home from day one.
Yo, today we're going to talk with Ksenya Malina of Time and Place Interiors. And we're going to talk about something that every man should have an interest in. How important is it to have a well coordinated home or apartment? And what connection do you see between fashion and interior design? Ksenya in the building. How are you?
hello, thanks for having me.
Of course. So before we go into our topic, please tell us. So, what do you do?
I'm an interior designer, interior decorator, whichever term you want to use. I'm based in New York. I design for New York City, primarily spaces, and I specialize in a combination of vintage and modern. So I put together old pieces and new pieces to create characterful, layered places. It allows me to introduce unique designs to my clients that they wouldn't have been able to necessarily obtain on their own and put it together cohesively. So I make your living space feel good for you.
So, why do you target young men, young professionals?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, my focus is not just in the kinds of pieces that I use, but also what's really important to me is authenticity. And the way that I layer pieces together, I try to bring out a sense of freshness, um, of a nuanced approach that I feel that young folks are more open to, that they're ready for elevating their lifestyle. They've gotten to a certain point where they're ready to improve the way that they live, but they're not so set in their ways and haven't accumulated enough stuff over the years that now they can't take a step back from it. So I find that it's like a good it's a good section of the population that wants something fresh, wants something new, and is also open to it.
Mm. So, when we were introduced together, initially I went totally blank. I said, I think I said to you, I was like, I don't see a
I don't
connection.
get it.
But, right, right. Not that I don't think interior design is important. Matter of fact, I cannot wait until you decide to take a suicide mission and explore my living room.
Anytime.
But 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 then literally towards the end of our conversation, it clicked. And I went, all right, if you are dressing well in your exterior, is it important for your interior to match in terms of presentation?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think that's it. That's exactly it. There's a sort of balance, right, between how we put ourselves out there to other people and also how we feel about ourselves when we leave the house as when we come in, right? So whether it's dressing for yourself to make you feel comfortable, confident, dressed appropriately, it's the same as in your home environment, right? So whether it's for the sake of occasional visitors or regular visitors, whatever your lifestyle is, or even if it's just for you, right? So it's not just for other people to look at how you're dressed, right? There's a sense of confidence that comes with dressing well, dressing in ways that fit you, right? Wearing clothes in a fit that's appropriate, right? Same with you. Like, does your interior represent the kind of lifestyle that you need or want? there's that kind of balance is, I think, on both sides, and it creates a more holistic sense of self for you. There's lots of connections also between fashion and interiors that are worth touching on as well. Um,
Feel free to touch on them because
yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not, this is not
yeah,
my forte. So
sure, sure.
go.
Well, interior design takes a lot of lessons from fashion. Fashion seems to kind of come first, like, right, like it's a little bit more for fast moving, right, and interiors kind of catch up. So there's like cultural shifts with that that start on the fashion side and then come into interiors. And a lot of like interior designers are looking to fashion styles. I don't know if that's what, you can say trends, but movements in fashion, right? And bringing that into their interior styles. And then there's also the element of sustainability. That's an important element to consider, right? So, fast fashion is not as detrimental even as fast furniture, right? So, like you think of like cheap throwaway clothes tend to lead to like overconsumption, a lot of waste. Same with furniture, right? Like so. If you've had an experience where you needed something quick, you clicked buy it now online, it looked good on the website, then it comes back and into your house, and then it doesn't. If it's clothing, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the way it should. Maybe the material isn't as good. It doesn't feel as good as it looked. Maybe it's lighter in weight. Maybe the fibers aren't quite as good quality, right? Same with furniture, right? Like the piece shows up and maybe it was actually kind of photoshopped a little bit, or the image was doctored online, and then it doesn't
What?
look this. It happens all the time, right? Or it doesn't fit in your space, or the sizing isn't right for not only for like the space itself, but how it interacts with your furniture. So a lot of that kind, and then it creates like this cycle of like, okay, we're gonna get rid of this, and maybe we're gonna throw it away, and then we have to buy new, and it's not sustainable from both an environmental perspective, and it's also not really great for like a sense of like wellness and harmony in your home environment. So I try to take a little bit of a slower approach, right? More thoughtful, similar to how you, Reg, might work with people on a thoughtful approach to dressing, right? I work with what do you really need in your space? What does your space need? What would look good here and with other things? What would feel comfortable? What are good materials? What are sustainable materials? What are the layers that we need? So it's not a anybody can click and buy any piece of furniture online. I'm not there to do that, right? I'm there to put it together. It's how you put it together and how you plan it out. That's the real value of it.
So, I know this is a broad generalization in me posing this question, but are you of the school that all vintage pieces are built with a quality that maybe some contemporary manufacturers don't come close to?
I'd say on a broad strokes assessment, pretty much yes. Um, not
Mm,
not everything, right? But the thing is that to get really good quality contemporary furniture, honestly, you have to go to like a pretty high echelon of price point. It doesn't mean that there's no good contemporary furniture. There's plenty of
right. No,
amazing
no, right.
makers.
But you have to spend a
You have
lot
to
of
spend
money.
a lot, right? With vintage, for good vintage, you still have to spend a lot, but you can get a lot more for your money.
Mm,
So you could, if vintage lighting, for example, like is an amazing way to make your money go a long way. It just has a design and a class, and and people often think of like, well, I have this like, this chair, but it's getting worn down, but I'll just reupholster it. If it's an antique that has good bones to it, then it's worth reupholstering. If it's a modern like West Elm thing, it's not going to be even like probably possible to reupholster it, let alone worth the value, right, of the labor,
Oh,
the materials, right? So it's kind of like these things wear down, and then they're often made of particle board, which can't be restored, whereas wood or wood veneers can be. So yes, for the most part, yes, you get a lot of quality. You get with vintage, you get a heritage. And some people think of like, well, I don't really like a traditional style. But there's like tons of like really cool, hip, sleek vintage stuff out there, which is kind of the stuff that I like. That's what I'm kind of drawn to. Like I like a layer of like mixing old and new, but like you think of like 70s and like chrome and curves and it's really mod. It looks really cool. It looks really fresh. So it doesn't mean that you have to have kind of, your grandmother's look. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
right. So I'm not trying to have you give away your secrets, Ksenia, but how do you source? Simply.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think it takes a combination of putting together contacts over the years of working, of knowing where to go for what, right? And so that could be particular showrooms, that could be particular sellers who I know whose websites to check. It could be marketplaces like First Dibs or Cherish. It could mean hunting in the place where you would least expect it. In the last project that I worked for a young guy, we bought a 1970s painting from France on First Dibs, but also we got like an antique Persian rug from Facebook Marketplace. So there's really like there's no
What?
yeah, there's like no there's no right or wrong, right? So it's not so much where you buy it, it's what it is. And there's some real surprises out there. So that hunt is kind of the fun part of the project, right? They say that
Sure,
design
and
is
I
like
understand that as well.
10% creative and 90% administrative. So in my line of work,
Really?
there's a ton of operations involved, right? So it's again, it's not like the click and buy, right? So like just to implement a project, just to say we've already selected everything, right? We've priced everything out, we've come up with a budget, we've come up with a plan, we have our furniture selected. Now what, right? So um, dealing with vendors, dealing with potential back ordered products, making sure that pricing is accurate. If something comes in damaged, dealing with restorations or returns and exchanges, warehousing things, planning to get things into a New York City apartment, right? So making sure that certificates of insurance are filled out, that the building elevator is reserved for access, that the super is aware of the delivery, right? That the sofa fits into the space, and if it doesn't, then you might have to call the sofa doctor, and they'll take the sofa apart and then they'll put it together. There's a lot of back end operations, and so a lot of my work is not just to open up great designs for clients, but to help them make it happen so that they can focus on other things, right, in their life, whether it's work or brunch or the gym or whatever, family time, however they want to spend it, rather than chasing deliveries and issues. So the issues always come up. That's a guarantee. What matters is who's on your team to deal with it professionally and take responsibility for it. So that's a lot of the value is of what I do.
Sure. Who is the sofa doctor? What is this
Guy. No, no,
individual?
it's a business. It's a business, and
Okay.
yeah. I it has not happened to me before, but I'm waiting for the time that it does. You do what you can in advance, right? Like you bring in the receiver mover, who measures the elevator, right, and says like, can the sofa come in before you purchase the sofa? But sometimes you do all your due diligence and then there's still an issue. So they like somehow will saw it in half and then like seam it together, and then client comes home and the sofa is in place in one piece, not in two.
Wow. Okay, wait
Yeah.
a sec. All right. Well,
Yeah.
that's a special
It's
service.
actually
That is not
messy.
a
Yeah.
I'm sure it's messy,
It's
but I'm
messy.
sure it's expensive.
It can be. But that, it's also expensive to make mistakes like this on your own, and then
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
don't have the relationships and you don't know who to call, and you go to a handyman.
Right.
Handyman might not know what to do, and you know this could easily happen without a designer, right? But then it's on you to
Right.
right to deal with it. So we're here to make your life a little easier, a little simpler.
Certainly. Yeah, that is the direct parallel between our services, unquestionably. So you've hinted at some eras. What is your favorite era currently of
Of
furniture to
design.
source for a client? What era? Yeah.
I mean, I have a soft spot for um, Italian and French 1940s and 1950s stuff.
Whoa.
It's it just has a quality and a panache to it that is just unmatched. Like it's sleek but sophisticated, and the design is just like, think of like it's like the best of it of Italian, but like Italian but make it modern. So that stuff's really
Hmm.
amazing. And I'm loving incorporating vintage Persian rugs, which I mentioned before, in really sleek
Yeah.
modern spaces. I love putting them in contemporary kitchens. Like, say you have a kitchen with like, you moved into a new place, right? And you've got like new cabinetry and, your stone island and new fancy appliances, right? But it still kind of feels a little cold, right? So, like, putting a vintage Persian runner there, which has like really good wear on it. Like, you can like really beat it up and even spill on it, honestly, and it'll be okay. And that instantly like elevates the design, right? And it like creates like a layer, personality that wasn't there before. So I think that's probably me in a nutshell, is like contemporary place, vintage stuff.
What's the worst era that you avoid?
Era or
What's the
error, like
era you like?
mistake.
Yuck. No, era, ERA. So you
Mm,
gave us your best 40s and 50s Italian.
yeah,
What's your worst? What's
the
the one you're like,
worst.
no?
Oh, what do I really not like? I don't like Tiffany lamps. They kind of remind me of, I mean, I know it's not like the same quality, but they kind of remind me of TGI Fridays.
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
love that.
Saying that about a Tiffany lamp? Oh.
There's something for everybody, and the Tiffany lamp they will have. So, I don't try to, I try to push authenticity rather than a particular style necessarily.
Mm,
I try to push clients' boundaries a little bit, right? But
sure.
it's essentially right, which you might do a little bit, like, right, like you kind of figure out like
Oh yeah, I definitely
what's
do.
the guy's style, right? But then like let's amp it
Yep.
up a little bit, right? Like,
Yep.
you like pattern, why don't we push it just a little bit? Or you like linen, let's do not just the linen, jacket, but the, I don't know, that much
Yeah.
better, right? So I
Yeah.
do the same, right? So like, okay, you like mid-century, great. Instead of like going to West Elm and getting the faux mid-century stuff, let's go get the real stuff, and it'll last you longer, and it doesn't necessarily have to break the bank, but you'll feel a lot better about it.
Hmm. So we know the parallels now between I mean, maybe you knew from the beginning. I did not.
Well,
But
I discovered some things
do
as I was talking
you
to you. you know, my own
do
thoughts.
you ever I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to
no, no.
talk
I'm
over
just
you.
saying that in conversation, you kind of you feedback off the other professionals. So, um, but
Right.
yeah.
Do you ever like ask a client like about his style, clothing wise,
Yeah.
sartorially, and then figure out the complement for the
Yeah.
interior?
Yeah. I feel that clothing style tends to be more accessible for people to know what they like. And so that's often a branching off point. It's hard to with some people you can get it, but with others you kind of need to figure out what are different ways to pull out of them what they like and what they don't like. And that could start with fashion, right? It could start with like you like a casual look, you like a more dressed up look, you like to accessorize, you like minimal. So that's often a branching off point to figuring out what kind of home environment they want to live in. Or if it's not, what are like travel destinations you like and what's the aesthetic of those destinations? Like, can we pull from that? Um, so there's different like elements besides just asking like, what's your favorite interior design style? Because honestly, like a lot of people don't necessarily know how to answer that question. They can't like point to like an encyclopedia of like the history of design, but maybe there's an art style that they like, and that art style is kind of abstract and modern, or maybe there's one that's more colorful, and maybe we can glean from clues from that on where to begin to plan what their space should look like too, so that it's cohesive to their personality and feels like a natural extension of their interests and their aesthetics.
Now, we're both in New York City.
Yeah.
Not every listener or viewer is. So I realize there's something I have to ask you in light of what you do.
Yeah.
Closets.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have some helpful tips for the viewers and
Yeah.
listeners about,
Yeah.
what do you do with closets?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's not all that much space in those closets, right? So, I would bet that when they work with you, you encourage them to clean those closets out and, get rid of things that hopefully sustainably that don't work for them anymore and make room for what does, right? So um I think the more efficient and organized your closet is, the more it affects what's outside of your closet, right? Not just for some clothing, but for everything else, right? So if you can fit more things into the closet, then there's less clutter in the rest of your interior. So I think it's hugely important. I think from a functional perspective, I really like a product like at the Container Store, there's Alpha, which is a Scandinavian product. It's super modular. You can have short hang, long hang, um, storage on super high shelves for things you don't use very often, like suitcases. You can put your summer stuff away and a hidden semi-hidden area and during the winter and vice versa. So a lot of times when I see a client's existing space, they struggle with how to clean it up from clutter, and so I think closets are like a number one solution. From a decorator perspective, like I think maybe you'd agree with me, but like with the way we dress ourselves is like kind of a ritual, right? So like is it sets up our day, right? And so if you can make that process nice for yourself, both functionally and visually, it like sets you off on a nice tone for the day. So are there ways that even if the closet is small, you can sort of make it into a pleasant experience for you? If you can't necessarily have a cedar closet, could you wallpaper the side of the closet, right? And so like it's like something that's not visible to anybody but you. But when you open it, it's like a nice kind of surprise, right? Or if you have, if you're lucky in New York that you have a walk-in closet and there's a light fixture above, that's kind of the contractor grade kind of white light that's maybe not so flattering. Can you have that be swapped out for a nicer fixture? It doesn't mean that it needs to be, a crystal chandelier, but maybe a flush mount that that is a little bit more attractive and makes you feel good when you get dressed in the morning? Is there any room right outside your closet, if not inside your closet, for a for a little stool so that you can, you know, take your shoes on and off in a more comfortable way? I think all of those things are can really make a difference to um, how we feel in our space, right? Because we live in these places, right? It's not just for looks, but it's for our lifestyle.
You know, you hit on lifestyle because I know nothing about what you do, right? I'm totally ignorant. How do you proceed with a consistency and theme from, let's say, literally the foyer that I'm gesturing
Hmm.
towards for anyone who's watching or even listening, into a living room,
Yeah,
into a kitchen, into a bedroom, into a bathroom?
yeah, yeah. That's a great question because a lot of the value of interior design is that cohesive flow so that the space feels like it's one. It doesn't mean that all the rooms have to have the same type of things in them or everything has to match, but it should feel like it all belongs to you. It's all there for a reason, and there's some sort of connectivity between the different spaces. So I, the more holistically you can plan your space, the better, right? So to not do it so like chopped up, like do this room now and then another room at a different time. It's okay if that happens, but the more you can plan out ahead for how the spaces will be, the more there is cohesion between the design, right? And but then also, can we somehow weave in some similarity from one room to the next? It doesn't have to be so matchy matchy, but if is there like an echo of something, like a, you know, is a color on a chair like somehow repeated on a rug in the next room, and it should be like really, it should be subtle, right? Because otherwise it looks like too prescribed, right? Like it looks like a hotel room. So we don't want that,
Oh.
right? But and a lot of it is kind of like a style cohesion, right? So is there a continuation of a particular theme or the way that it's layered is our spaces you know, if you have a minimal space, like are each of the spaces minimal, are each of the spaces layered, do they all look eclectic, and sometimes it's about like putting in an element that you wouldn't necessarily think of in a particular space, right? So, you know, you don't want your kitchen or your bathroom to be like completely unrelated to the rest, right? So I think that's like a good way to illustrate it, right? So in your bathroom, like, yeah, it's a functional space, but is there a place to hang some wall art? Can the lighting in there be with a, like an interesting vanity light that is in the style or at least to your aesthetic liking of the lighting in your dining room? In your kitchen, can, like my example of the vintage Persian rug on the floor, like can we weave in character into there? Can we put, you know, even small things like, you know, a bowl for keeping fruit, you know, that is more decorative than just functional. Like there's accessories that we can that we can weave in. For example, and my kitchen is like has white cabinets on top, light cabinets on the bottom, right? And so it ended up feeling a little bit like not the kind of flow that I would want from my dining room, which is right outside of it, which has a Danish modern teak table and chair set. So I put a piece of teak tableware on the kitchen counter, and so then it kind of like weaves the connection. Like there's, you know, a little bit of an echo of a space. So it takes finesse. It takes looking.
Yeah.
And it should be undone with a light touch.
What has been your favorite project so far with a client?
Yeah. I think well the one I just wrapped up, it was a West Village high rise, was really exciting. It was for a young man who bought his first apartment, has incredible views of the city. So that the setting was really great, but it was kind of white, kind of like a white box, blank space, like a 1960s place. And we really layered it. So he wanted a modern look, um, but a place where an antique wouldn't feel out of place. So most of the things were sourced from vintage. When we got him like a leather Danish safari chair with more of an antique look. Yeah, I know, right? Uh,
Sounds fancy,
yeah,
ladies and gentlemen. It sounds fancy. I don't know what it looks like. It just sounds fancy.
it's a piece of fold. It's called campaign furniture. So from the turn of the century, when these European military guys would be in going to different places, colonizing the rest of the world, they would have campaign furniture so they could be disassembled and put together wherever they were. So the campaign chair is like the safari campaign. It's like completely folds and then it unfolds. So you could take it with you.
What?
You probably won't, but
Ah,
it's a really cool piece. It's from the 1960s. It has black leather, so it looks really masculine. But then we've got handmade art. We have the building was constructed in 1962. We have a super large photo art that was framed of a view of Penn Station taken in the same year. So there's like reference to the architecture. We've got a French 1960s boucle swivel chair that's really mod, but then we have the client brought in an old secretary desk of his. The dining room's really cool. We've got a contemporary wood table, and around it are these um, mod vintage black leather and chrome chairs. So it all looks really modern, but
yeah.
it looks fresh. So I'm really excited and I've just got it professionally photographed, so I can't wait to have those final images ready to show.
That's your flex. There's no question about that. What has been your worst project, Ksenia? Keep it real. The one you were like,
Oh,
what am I doing?
yeah. Yeah. Well, you learn as you go, right? You got to make some mistakes, right? And so, you kind of start off doing family and friend projects when you first kick
Of
off,
course.
right? And so then I had
Yep.
a not a close relative, but I had a relative I was working with a project, and there wasn't a lot of communication at the outset of what expectations were of what I was doing for them, what they were going to be doing, and so the project never like made it to completion. So I don't
Oh,
have the benefit of having my mark be on a place, and they don't have the benefit of having a complete space. And I think setting out expectations at the start, with a proper contract, not to be litigious, but so that there's an understanding of what the professional is doing for you and how it's going to work and what the process are. So I think projects are as a the way to run an interior design project is to have solid, repeatable processes and operations um, that are consistent. The project can look different, it can have a different scope, but if you're organized and you've got your operations in check and your ducks in a row, that's what really like makes a project feel right, both for the designer and for the end client. So I've I've come a long way since that time. So now, like, yeah, issues still happen, but um, there's a way, there's a schedule, there's a sense of confidence that's built in to the client that things will be done professionally and handled correctly. That I think is just as important as the quality of the design. So
Mm,
I take pride on that. There's always room to grow, but
yep.
it's not to be underestimated, I think.
No, of course not. I totally understand that. We are off to the lightning round,
Okay,
Ksenia.
okay.
Why is fashion important?
Fashion is a representation of us to ourselves and to others, and it's a way to um, reflect our personalities and our values through our bodies. What could be more personal than your body and how you take care of it, whether it's through wellness or with dressing.
Well said. What difference has fashion made in your life?
Mm, just filled my closets. um, I think from I was thinking about like what's my fashion. I think it's relationship perspective. Like when I was a little bit younger and single, I spent a lot of time shopping with my mom, and we kind of treated it as
Mm.
like the time together for something that we both liked. And so it I think it helped that relationship like grow and blossom over a
Mm.
mutual interest of, vintage shopping or regular shopping. So I have like fond memories of that from my late 20s, early 30s.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What is the top fashion tip you would give the everyday man to look his best?
Yeah. Wear what fits. And don't be afraid to go against the grain. You don't necessarily need to look like everybody else on the street. You can if you want to, but you know, um, maybe ask Reg if it's a good look for you. But if he says yes, don't be afraid to push the boundaries a little bit if if it's something that you feel special in. Kind of like furniture.
Yeah, yeah. Great parallel. Last but not least, what does the expression always be fly mean to you?
Yeah, that's a good
Ah,
one.
thank you.
Always have a sense of style. It doesn't mean that you need to be outlandish, fabulous, but have a mark to yourself. Um,
Mm.
Something that sets you apart. It can be super subtle, be super minimal, um, but something that is a look of for you, right? Is it your sensibility with cool shoes? For me, it's my vintage shoes. Is it a particular, you know, is it a particular look that you have, like a particular style? Is it a type of clothing? Hone in on on that element and stick with it if it's working for you, if it makes you feel good.
I like that. Ksenia Malina, time and place interiors. This was very interesting. All of my interviews are, but uh, and this was interesting in more ways than one, and that's a little inside joke between us.
Yeah.
So I can't wait until you either virtually or in person look at my living room, and I will provide the smelling salts.
Amazing. I You don't even need it because I won't faint. We've seen it all. It's a super personal. We get into all kinds of things if clients want us to. So things don't phase me. And it'd be my pleasure.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll see you on the other side.
Thanks, Reg. Great to be here.